I'm working at a mathematical institute. So that means I'm teaching students in mathematics. So when they come to me in their second or third year, most of them are familiar with calculus and algebra and geometry. And when they come to me, I have to teach them about a different world. I have to teach them, not to teach them about precise equations. I have to teach them about the world outside the university. That looks strange. So why do I have to do that? Because my students expect some good job after the studium, after the university. So they have to be prepared for that life also, and not only for the internal life at the university. So my subject is what in Germany we call stochastics. And that is a combination of probability and statistics. So what is that about? That is about everything which you cannot explain in a simple way through equations or functions. Okay, so which is what we say random. I'll give you an example. The weather. The weather is something everybody's interested in that, and the weather tomorrow. So we can predict it, but we never know. There's always some risk in the prediction. Let's talk about prices at the stock exchange. Okay? So they vary, they're changing, and you never know exactly what will happen tomorrow. So that is what stochastics is about. So I give them a picture of a world which is like a jungle, full of risks. There is no security. Okay? And that is my field. That is my field, and there's also a lot of research going on. So maybe you remember your school time. So maybe you remember physics and chemistry. And what the high school teachers told you are messages about the laws of nature. Say Newton's law. Okay, that's what you learn. But also, in this world where we are living, there is also something I would like to call the laws of life. So there are laws in the economic world. I mentioned that at the stock exchange, for example. There are laws in medicine. You have medical problems maybe, and maybe treatments are useful. So there are processes in your everyday life, in everybody's everyday life, processes in medicine, in economics, in agriculture, on the job market, as to the weather, everywhere. Just open your eyes. Just open your eyes, and then you will detect processes which are not predictable, which are full of risk. Maybe you are lucky, maybe you are unlucky. Okay, it's like a wheel of fortune. So, and then it is very interesting to detect some laws. For example, how do consumers at the market behave? If you give them some advertisement or some rebajas, yeah, does that motivate people? Okay, so the big companies are very much interested in that. I'll give you another example in medicine. Suppose you are sick. I'm not talking about flus. I'm talking about serious sickness. Okay, so then there is some risk for a breakdown in the future, and you are expecting something. This is why you're going to a medical doctor, and you expect some release from a treatment, but maybe there are 2 treatments or 3 treatments. Which is the better one? Okay, so you have to compare. And in the beginning, nobody knows. Nobody knows about what is your risk, how are things going on in the real world. So therefore, if you are, say, an expert in medicine, you may wonder. And then you are advising students in medicine, PhD students. and they collect data. Okay, so that is a very important step. So nobody knows about the laws of life, but everybody wants to know. So therefore, you have to get some information, but the information is coming through data. So there must be somebody who is able to analyze the data, and that is the statistician's job. Okay, so that is now we are at the point where I can use the word information. So somehow you have to collect some information about what you're interested in, and there must be somebody who is able to do that. So being a statistician does not mean you're working in a corner of your office. That is not enough. But you have to be open-minded. You have to be open-minded and work together with economists or medical people or agriculture people, you know. And wherever information is coming through experiments, through data. So statistics is just in the middle of that. So it's a very interesting subject. And I think most of my colleagues, my professors in pure mathematics, they don't know what statistics is about. Yeah? So here I'm at the economic department. So that exactly describes my view of things, doing some cooperation with other people from other areas. So for example, economics, that is just one possibility. Another possibility in my case would have been medicine. So analyze medical data. And all these data have special features. So what you should not do, just take a statistical program and feed this program with your data and push a button. But first you have to look at and have some conversations, some interviews with the experts, and then you come together. And then a very interesting process is starting, because now you start to think about what could be the law of life, say in an economic problem. Okay, so what comes out of that is something which we call model. So do you know what a model is? No? A model, for example, say in fashion, a fashion model, so a beautiful woman, okay, but also a model car. So small models, for example, a small red model of a Ferrari or a train, these are models. So the models is not the reality, but it features the most important things. So a statistical model is just an attempt to describe in a mathematical way this process in real life. That is a model. But you know, where is the risk? The risk is that the model can be wrong. Okay? So it is just your idea coming out of the collaboration with, say, medical or economic people, and that you have some feeling the real world should go like this. Okay? And that is what you put into a model equation, some mathematics. Okay? And of course the model, and so you have to analyze this model, you have to analyze, you feed the model with your data, but there's always a risk that your model is not correct, so you have to improve it. It's an everlasting process. So that is statistical analysis, and that requires a lot of techniques sometimes, and you have to be very patient. It's not just averaging, as many people think statistics is about just take data and average. That is something very important, but which is well understood. But in the future, what we want to analyze are much more complicated phenomena, very dynamic over time. Okay, and that is more or less what I'm doing here with my hosts.